This is the power of authentication. The second aspect is that those identities that we are issuing are all of them stored in a ledger and decentralized through a blockchain. So that means that anyone in the world, anywhere in the world that wants to verify that this book is actually Don's book, and the digital signature which is on the chip is his signature, can at the same time just through a blockchain ledger verify that. So basically, he's creating an ecosystem only out of one book. And that obviously in the future allows him to do many other things. He can maintain the editorial content of the book, he can have Q&A question with his reader, he can write other books and maintain the connection. So we're gonna make, and this is gonna be a world first, so this is a blockchain Davos, and this has never been done before, and we hope that it's gonna work. So we're gonna, with you, Don, because you're gonna be with me authenticating this book, we're gonna, maybe Carlos, my VP on RAM protection, is gonna help us with that. So just to explain you what it is, this is an Android phone. WISeKey has installed an application in that Android phone. That application is the one that is gonna detect the cryptographic key which is on that book. So by doing that, go ahead. So you see, now the phone has detected the key and is now showing the picture of Don and the picture of Alex, which are both co-authors of the book. And that is a recipe. It's like what you get in a restaurant after you pay your deep meal. It's a validation that this book is real and a validation of transaction. But this is now connected to a blockchain, so that means that Don now has the information on this mobile phone. He has the possibility to reach out this mobile phone through a blockchain ecosystem and being able, through that, to engage with that person that has authenticated. So this is the Internet of Things. This is the Internet of Books, if we can call it that way. But basically, it's the capability of an object with its own identity to connect. One of the largest hacks this year in the United States has been objects, Chinese cameras which were not digitally tagged and didn't have the right technology were used by hackers, and they managed to take those cameras' data and organize one of the largest DDoS attacks that the world ever had. If those cameras had those chips, and those chips will have an asymmetric key, they will be impossible for a hacker to manipulate that information. Just wanted to put that in perspective, and now we're going to open the, thank you very much, Carlos. We're going to open the panel with amazing experts, which I think to join me again this year. Last year I have Kevin Spacey here with me, so I thought that the fact that we were fully booked was Kevin Spacey. Obviously this year Kevin is not, but it's still the book, the room is fully booked. So I really thank you for your continued support to what we are doing here in Davos. I pass the floor to David for the introductions.
Thank you, Carlos. As Carlos referenced, we have a great panel here with us today, and I've asked each of them to share with you over the course of a minute their background, particularly as it pertains to blockchain. I'd like to begin with the CEO of WISeKey, Richard Olson. Richard? We have microphones. Perhaps. Thanks, Don.
So, thanks for inviting us. We do something very simple. I mean, lots of people are talking about blockchain. Few people realize that blockchain is the equivalent to TCP/IP for the internet. Now, your book is a digital asset, but any property will become digital asset, any claim. What is missing is the equivalent of the browser of the internet. And what is the browser in the blockchain context? It's a marketplace where you have fair price discovery and can swap any asset for another asset. So Lurka is doing exactly that. We're building a global marketplace which is regulated, and now you can use the WISeKey to create and get your coffee app, and then get your coffee and go to the local coffee store and pay with your digital coffee coin, thanks to WISeKey.
Actually, Richard, there's a great, and you guys have, some of you might show it. With that, you can download the app, which is a WISeKey Corporation app that allows you to just use basically the Bitcoin to acquire a coffee and be free. And this is another partnership that demonstrates the value, potential value on combining cybersecurity companies with identity companies and blockchain companies. Maybe if you would mind, because we're going to go back and back, and I want to make this very proactive and reactive forum. So just one minute introducing all of you, and then we go into the debate, if you don't mind.
Yeah,
please.
If I can introduce Dr. Wang Wei. This is Wang Wei returns here after 10 years ago visiting Davos, and it's a great honor to have a gentleman who is considered the father of mergers and acquisitions and private equity in China today, and who has largely been responsible for the amalgamation, the introduction of a learning environment, a semi-regulatory infrastructure for the advancement of investment from China, and now considered one of the foremost thinkers and investors in blockchain today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, and then thank you for the invitation. As I say, I do 30 years M&A in China, and I consider myself one of the pioneers. But things changed recently. Recent past 5-6 years, we do a lot of investment on startup, and which is mostly focused on fintechs. And then 2 years ago, we create a museum, probably the first one in the world, the Museum of Fintech, and which is very popular right now in China. We had to create a circle of fintech entrepreneurs. So probably 250,000 people visit us, and we designed exhibition for the blockchain last year, which is not only in Beijing, we also show other cities. And Don's John and also Alex, Don's, the book is very good, one of the bestsellers in China. And we had I think the first debut is in my museum, but not FinTech Museum, it's Global Finance Museum. So I hope next time you'll be there. So thank you for the invitation. I would like to share anyone who is interested in blockchain, fintechs, you're welcome to visit my museum. We can do something together. Thank you.
Elena Kavachko is a World Economic Forum veteran, and now is the CIO for, I think I'm allowed to say, a leading global bank. How did I do?
Thank you, David. Thank you for the introduction. So our interest in blockchain, I think our industry has always been one of the first or early adopters of new technology. And blockchain is a great example of that. I think we're now kind of in the design and experimentation phase. And that comes down basically to two questions in its current shape is where can we derive the best value at the least cost, and how can we actually trust the system? If you actually take a step back and look at the journey that blockchain took within our industry, it's quite remarkable. Even just a couple of years ago, blockchain was perceived as something elusive and as something that banks don't even need to engage in. And now my company, Barclays, and other industry players are actually actively experimenting with different use cases and are looking for meaningful applications.
Thank you, Elena. Immediately to my right, here we go. That's almost a blockchain. Is Primavera de Felipe. Primavera has a resume that is barely encompasses, I think, the range of expertise that you've assembled in this area. You are both a professor and a researcher at several institutions, including Harvard. Please tell us a little bit about how did you come to be a part of the blockchain revolution?
Yeah, so I'm a legal researcher at Harvard University and at the University of Paris, and it's been quite many years that I was focusing on the legal challenges of decentralized applications. And well, when Bitcoin came out, then I just decided that this was one of the most interesting things that came out. And I decided to focus 100% of my research on blockchain technologies. And what I'm specifically looking at is how we can actually create an interface between those technologies, which are completely new and are existing in a regulatory framework that doesn't actually understand them, and how we can actually design current practices with contractual mechanism in order to actually operate today in the existing regulatory framework. And then on the other hand, then I'm looking at the policy questions and what kind of regulation actually could be promoted in order to accommodate those technologies. And then in addition to this, I'm also the director of Koala, which is an international organization whose goal is really to gather a community of lawyers, of engineers, cryptographers, entrepreneurs, etc., and to work together in order to identify practical challenges to the operationality of those technologies and to identify actual practical solutions, always by intersecting between these techno-legal framework. Mostly because there are today two main barriers to the adoption and to the mainstream deployment of blockchain technology. One is the technical issue, so the question of scalability, etc. But the other one, which is actually quite important, is also the regulatory one. So we need to figure out how to answer those regulatory questions in order to enable commercial operators to actually adopt those technologies. And then finally, I'm also the co-founder of Backfeed, which is a project that aims at identifying how to use blockchain technology in order to enable what Davos was describing, like a real collaborative economy. So how can we actually create, on top of this decentralized infrastructure, a decentralized governance structure that will enable the creation of an actual digital cooperative in which the people that are actually contributing to the organization are actually shareholders in this organization, so that we can create a system of redistribution of the value according to the actual value produced by each individual.
Tremendous, thank you. Richard Caetano is the CEO of an early stage blockchain company. Please tell us a little bit about Structure.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Carlos, and Don. This great intro and a great organization here. So Stratum is a cyber security company that focuses on securing processes between the enterprise. And if you look at a lot of what most blockchain companies are working on today, we're working on how to secure assets and the transfer of assets. So between person A and B, how do we make sure that this asset transfer is legit? What we're doing is a little bit different, and it involves mapping processes or common workflows between the enterprise, such as a supply chain, and mapping that onto a blockchain in a way where all of the facts can be represented digitally with security around it. In addition to that, we're also working with more advanced forms of cryptography in ways where we can secure information and prove certain aspects of that information without revealing it. So one of our highest goals is to ensure privacy for our customers and clients in the realm of globalization and between many different enterprise partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. It's a great honor to welcome Jean-Philippe Cinginano. Jean-Philippe is the Minister of Youth and ICT for the government of Rwanda. Welcome.
Thank you. Jean Philbert. That's my name. Right, so as I listened to this great conversation, I kept reflecting on the 5 things that government normally are doing or should do to promote or drive the digital economy. Now, we've been talking about the Internet of Information. Now we are learning, and we came all here to learn about this new world of opportunities. So 5 things. One is connect. How do you bring the 4 billion people, the 5 million people not online in Rwanda today? That is really like 70% of my job. And Don was right. You know, we had been struggling to get people to spend money to buy mobile phones until mobile wallets came along. And then overnight, 90% of the people had to find money to buy phones. You know, we're talking about resource-constrained environments where people live under $2 a day, but they still manage to buy a phone, and they spend more on communication than on food. So this is really important. So I think that blockchain has this potential to actually drive the adoption of internet, because that's our next battleground. The second thing is educate, you know, the job of government. So I believe that there has to be a great deal of education blockchain technology needs to be introduced